the very best version of yourself. This is what Jesus Christ is committed to. Jesus is the sovereign reigning king with power to resurrect me into the likeness of his glory. And his glory is the best version of myself, which means that we can't become the best version of ourselves by ourselves. We need help. Jesus is help. And these verses tell us how he intends to help. These verses give us both the process and the product. First, the process. The process begins in verse 35. But someone will ask, how are the dead raised? With what kind of body do they come? And Paul says the reason why some of you Corinthians are cynical about resurrection is that you have failed to factor God's power into the equation. Does God have the power to do this or not? Well, of course he does. And so Paul says, go outside. Verse 36, what you sow does not come to life unless it dies. You see what Paul is doing? Paul is utilizing the science of his day to explain the world that God is refashioning. So science and faith are not combatants. They're colleagues. They give meaning to each other. And here Paul argues that science helps us understand biblical truth. The visible helps us perceive the invisible. And Paul claims that God's power to resurrect and transform your body is similar to that in which a seed produces a plant or a tree. And so in verses 36 to 38, Paul argues from common sense observation, from corn seed to corn stalk, what appears impossible to common sense, a resurrected body. Paul says, think. You don't plant corn stalks. You plant seeds. As far as the naked eye can see, it appears lifeless. But when planted, the mysterious power of resurrection takes over. Paul argues that just as God, by his power, created the heavens and the earth, the power to generate life from a seed of corn, the power to generate flight from the body of a bird, the power to hang the sun, moon, and stars, God has the power to raise his son from the grave. And he has the power to resurrect and transform your body into a glory body. And that takes us to the product. The product is a glory body. God's power will cause your glory body to be incorruptible and powerful and spiritual, just like Jesus' glory body. And what Paul does in this next paragraph, starting in verse 42, is he compares what is sown and what is raised. So it is, verse 42, with the resurrection of the dead. What is sown is perishable. What is raised is imperishable. It is sown in dishonor. It is raised in glory. It is sown in weakness. It is raised in power. Paul compares this body now with that body then. God promises a glory body, incorruptible, honorable, powerful, visible, a body both immune from the physical diseases such as COVID and from societal diseases such as envy and pride and partiality and hate and greed. And Paul says in verse 44, it is sown a natural body, it is raised a spiritual body. If there is a natural body, there is also a spiritual body. Now, when Paul says spiritual, he does not mean immaterial. It refers to a body animated, driven, fueled, and sustained by the Holy Spirit of Jesus Christ. It is a body equipped to function in an environment whereby the chief animator is neither oxygen or warmth or light or food or drink. Rather, the chief animator is the Holy Spirit. And that life looks like a life of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control.